Welcome, my name's Ryan. I work for Pharos Controls, and these are a series of our online tutorials that's going to hopefully teach you how to use our system. By and large, this is based on the training that we do last Thursday of every month, and it's essentially our basic training that I'm going to be walking you through today. Just a couple of points to start with. If you haven't already, please visit our website and download Designer. Designer is compatible with both Windows and Mac OS X, and the version that we're going to be using in our training is 2.7.5, which is the latest release that we've brought out. Design is free to download, and essentially you'll be using this software to program our hardware in a project file that's typical of what you may come across in the field. I'm going to be using some hardware behind me. You don't need the hardware, you can just still follow along using the software, but just so I can demonstrate to you how the hardware actually works with our software, I'm going to be using that today with one of our training cases. Again, you're not going to have access to our training cases, but there are a load of training materials which you should download, which hopefully is in a link below this video. So install Designer, download the training resources, and once you've got that saved and set up, go ahead and you can open Designer, and hopefully you will come to this page. So just to start off with, when you open up Designer for the first time, you're probably going to be presented with the page that I have shown in front of you. And just so we're aware, this is the project tab. This will fill with more options and tabs later on as you progress through your project. But to start off with, on the left hand side, you have a list of your recent projects. You also have four tabs across the top. You have your home tab, your about, which is our end user license agreement, our new features that we've been implemented into Designer, and then also our release notes as well. So just before we go ahead and actually start making a project file, one of the things that you probably should do if you do have some hardware to hand is just make sure that it's correctly configured with Designer. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to click on the Network tab, which is just underneath the Project tab. And then you'll be presented with any hardware that Designer can discover. Now, I have two scenarios in front of me that are very common issues that people run into. There are two controllers here which I'm using, an LPC and a TPC, and as you can see they have different coloured text. First off, the LPC at the top is in red writing. This simply means that the firmware that you've got on your controller is incompatible with the version of Designer. So very simply put, every single time that we bring out a new version of Designer, you're going to need to reload the firmware on the controllers, and you'll probably need to do this for any remote or accessory devices that you have in your system as well. So reloading the firmware to the current version is very simple. You can click on Reload Firmware at the top here, and then it's going to tell you the current firmware is 2.7.4, the new firmware will be 2.7.5. Do you want to start the firmware reload? Yes, I do. And then this is probably going to take about a minute or two just so that the controller can get the firmware package and then reload that. Underneath that, you'll see that I have a TPC, and this TPC is grayed out. Now, the reason for this is it's on an incompatible IP address. So the quickest way to fix this is just to quickly find out your computer's IP address. You can do that via your system preferences if you're on OS X like I am, but you can also do that through Windows for your network adapter settings. So if I go to my Ethernet connection here, you can see that I've got an IP address of 10.0.0.170, and the TPC rather is on a 192.168 address. So what I'm going to need to do is one of two things. I can either change my computer's IP address to be in range of the controller, or I can change the controller's IP address to be in range of my computer. So it doesn't matter which way you do it, just as long as they're in range of each other. Just go to configure at the top, and then just give it an IP address that's in range. So 10.0.155 is fine, and then click apply. And then that'll take about a moment or so just so that it can get the new IP address settings. And as soon as that's taken effect, you'll see that the controller's text has now gone black. Alternatively, what you can also do is set the controller to be in a DHCP mode. And again, just like before, if you click on the configure button, you can do that. And that DHCP mode will enable it to get an address from something like a router. Just whilst we're here, we'll have a look at one and two of the other features that appear within the controller configuration window. You can, of course, set the time or just sync the time of the controller's clock to your computer, which is quite important as we progress through the settings and also the configuration of your file. And there's also other things that you can do, such as you can format the controller's SD card if you wanted to wipe it, or you can enable some kind of security for the controller. So now that I'm happy that all of my controllers have been set up correctly, that they've got black writing, I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to just start off by making a new project file. I'm going to go to the project window at the top left. I'm going to click on the new project button at the top. And now I have two options. I can either use a quick start where I can pick a controller and that's going to create the framework for that type of controller, or I can go ahead and I can customize a project. For this training tutorial, I'm going to go ahead and customize the project. I'm going to fill out the following details. So I'm going to call that training. I'm going to give the author name as my initials, and then I'm going to pick a city. I'm currently based in London. This, by the way, is quite important. The city will enable the controller to run an algorithm every single night at midnight that's going to work out a couple of different things, namely the DST rules for the region, so that's daylight savings time, or it's also going to enable it to work out when sunrise and sunset is. So it's quite important that you get the location correct if you want that stuff to work properly. Once I've done that, I also have a section for leaving notes. This can be quite handy. You can access this once you get into the project file. And if you're updating your programming within a team and you've updated some of it and you would like to leave a note, you can do that here. Once I'm happy with that, I'm going to click next. It's then going to ask me, okay, what devices do I want to pull into my project file? So you can see on the top left here, we have a list of online devices. We have the LPC and the TPC that I'm connected to. I can go ahead and click the plus button and I can add those into the project file. After that, I'm going to click next. It's then going to ask me what kind of protocols do I want to include within my project file. Now, I'm going to leave these all ticked for now. Don't worry if you don't understand what they mean. I'm going to be talking about these a lot more as we progress through the training, but for now, just keep all those ticked. Once I'm happy with that, I'm then going to click finish. And after a couple of minutes, or a couple of moments rather, the project file and all of the framework that's been included in the setup is now in front of me. Okay, I'm going to stop here and we're going to come back to this later on, and we'll start going through the next window, which is the layout window that's presented in front of us.